Hey people, this episode of WTF is sponsored by Stamps.com. Go to Stamps.com and type in WTF when you click the radio microphone to start a no-risk trial and get a bonus offer worth $110. That's Stamps.com. Enter WTF. Do it.
Lock the gate!
All right, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers? What the fuck buddies? What the fuck sticks? What the fucking ears? Hi, folks. I am Marc Maron. This is WTF. How are you? I do want to say some things right up front here before I forget them or bury them or put them, whatever. I have a special premiering on Netflix tonight. My special Thinky Pain premieres tonight on Netflix, all English-speaking Netflix. I believe that's UK Netflix, Canada Netflix, American Netflix. Tonight, October 7th. The rest of the Netflix will follow those on the 21st. I'm proud of this special. I went out of my way to do certain things on this special to honor who I am at this point in my career. We did it at a small venue. We did it at a venue that had some significance to me. You will see some brief cameos by Tom Sharpling, my dear friend Tom Sharpling. My dear friend Sam Lipsyte also shows up. And it was like just another night. I went out of my way to make sure that we kept it sort of about the performance. You will notice there's not a lot of audience cutaways. You only see a couple rows of the audience. I did it in front of a small group of people, about 240 people. The entire special, I believe, is pulled from one performance out of the two. And I did have a stomach virus. So I was doing a team thing on my special. It was me and an unseen stomach bug that was pestering me. That's not an excuse for anything. I'm proud of the special. I chose to keep it long. It's about an hour and a half, I believe, or so. Old school, movie-length special, and I hope you enjoy it. Thinky Pain tonight on American, Canadian, UK, Netflix. That's the 7th and the 21st everywhere else. What else? Next Sunday on the 13th, I will be doing one of my one-night shows at the Ice House. I believe that's like a 7:30 show. Dean Delray will be with me. He's very excited about that. Some of you remember you met Dean here on the podcast, rock and roll Dean Delray, at the Ice House on October 13th. I believe there'll be other people on the show. So those are the two plugs up front. Oh, yeah, and this is something I want to say before I really get going on what I don't know. We're going to take a moment here to thank a longtime friend of the WTF podcast and comedy stuff in general, Comedy Central. Comedy is what they do, and they continue to do it in all ways people want it. Shows, apps, digital series, all that stuff. And it's great to see so many past WTF guests on Comedy Central. And, that's it. It's nothing specific. Not a specific plug, just that they've been a good partner of ours over the years here. So show them some love by downloading or following or visiting something they do over there at Comedy Central. Thanks for all your support, guys and gals of the funny land. Oh, my God, Laura Dern is on the show. How much do you love her? How much do you fucking love Laura Dern? I tell you, man, this interview was recorded a little while back, so we did have a pretty long discussion about Enlightened. It was a great show. It was a character I could relate to. It was a self-involved character full of idealism and anger and narcissism. It was a beautiful show. She was great in it. She's great in everything she does. She is inspirational just by being her. Not that she pays any lip service to being inspirational, but there's something about Laura Dern's earnestness and passion that is very unique, and she's a fucking great actress, and I was thrilled to talk to her. Nervous even, but I think we had a good chat. So you can enjoy that momentarily. I want to thank Dave Anthony and the crew at Podfest. We had a good time. It was a great event. This was the second year for LA Podfest, and a lot of people came out. There's a lot of podcast fans out there, and God damn it, we appreciate you. And it was fun to see everybody. I like these festival things. They're kind of interesting, just people hanging out for an entire weekend, fans of a thing. And there were dozens of podcasts there, and it was great to see all my pals I did Greg Fitzsimmons show. I did the new Death Squad show, the Tony Heathcliff show. I did a couple of smaller podcasts. It's a real community now. And I feel like, I'm definitely part of it, and I definitely had something to do with it. And it's pretty exciting. Benson was there. Jimmy Pardo was there. Rich Voss and Bonnie McFarlane were there. Jake Johansson was there. Dana Gould was there. Man, there were a lot of podcasters there. And those are only the ones that I ran into. It's very interesting that once you start doing something, look, folks, never forget the fact that we are all just potential content. That anything you put out there, even just your content. At some point, things have got to level off. There's just, hundreds of content providers, people rolling their dice, throwing their hat into the content providing ring, hoping somebody will come and feed on their content. Just remember, you will not be judged by your work. You will not be judged by your legacy will be the amount of content that you leave the world. Not whether or not it's good, not whether or not it means anything, but that is your legacy. How much content did he provide the great content machine? Content is eternal. Digitized content will never go away. You will be judged by your content forever. In eternity. Nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do. Once you dump it, once it becomes ones and zeros, that's it. It's eternal. Hey, I don't want that out there. Sorry, there's no tracking that thing now. It is swimming through the content ocean. Being picked up by this and that. Fishes, processed, digested, spit out. Oh, there's a piece of it in some other thing. Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Some little content catalyst, some little aggravated man at the keyboard. I'm just going to take part of that content and mash it into this other thing and then put it out as a whole thing, and I'm going to frame it the way I want it. I'm going to take that guy's content, that guy's legacy, and just mash it up into some other bullshit and recontextualize it and put it out as my content, my statement on his content. It's like fucking cancer. The malignancy of content legacy. You got no control over it, man. You will be mashed up, framed, dissected, cut up, repackaged for someone else's needs. That is the destiny of content. That is the destiny of your legacy. Just to be part of something else. Cut up, reframed, annihilated, and diminished. Happy Monday! Man. But you're enjoying my content, and I'm thankful for that. Look, folks, things are okay. They're unfolding. Are you okay? Because I want to say something about Stamps.com. A lot of people listen to this and wonder what the big deal is about getting stamps. Well, anybody listening to this who has leased a postage meter for their business knows the real deal. Am I right, my friends? Postage meter people, can you hear me? If you use a postage meter for your business, it can get expensive. It can get pricey, yo. You get locked into long-term leases. It can be more hassle than it's worth, right? Postage meter people. Now, unlike a postage meter, Stamps.com has no hidden fees like ink charges or reset fees. No long-term contracts. No extra hardware to buy or lease. It can save you up to 80% compared to a postage meter. Plus, with Stamps.com, you can do more than you can do with a meter. Use your existing address books. Send tracking information with the click of a button. So that's the big deal about Stamps.com. More features at a fraction of the cost. Yes, I've used Stamps.com for more than 3 years, and there's no reason for me to go lease a postage meter. Ever again. Use my promo code WTF for my special offer. Start a no-risk trial plus a $110 bonus offer that includes a digital scale and up to $55 of free postage. Don't wait, my friends. Go to Stamps.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in WTF. That's Stamps.com. Enter WTF. Okay, content will be provided. Let's talk to Laura Dern. I have this fascination with the people that grew up in this city, but also in show business when you did. Like, I can't imagine what it was like to be a kid around these people.
Dude, it was crazy. Man.
I mean, so, your dad's fucking Bruce Dern. Seriously, do you know that?
I'm just starting to realize it and get over it.
He's one of the great kind of like hippie oddballs in a way,
he's so
right?
Awesome. Yeah, he's so awesome.
Did you spend time with him when you were a kid, though? I mean,
I did. I mean, I definitely was raised by my mom and my grandma, but I spent a lot of time with him as I got older. I think he kind of, as you could imagine, probably didn't really know what to do with a small person.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I don't see how any of those guys did. Like all those stars of that time. I mean, I couldn't imagine any of them as parents.
No.
But when you were a kid, I don't know what your mom, Diane Ladd, was. Did she say enough with these men? I'm taking the kid.
Basically, I think she realized that she might just be better off kind of trying to figure out how to do it with her mom and, getting our own pad. And letting him, have his life as he needed it at the time. It's so weird because they divorced when I was 2, so I don't even know what their life looked like.
But you don't feel like it wasn't like, you said that in a very sort of giving way. Like, she just let him have his life. There was no get the fuck out of my house. You and your friends.
Okay, my mom is Diane Ladd.
Right.
So anyone who knows her knows get the fuck out was definitely part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Because even if the conversation of child support came up 10 years later, I heard the F word a lot in my house. So she was definitely vocal, I'm sure, about what she, wasn't getting then.
Yeah.
But what's amazing now that, I'm a mom and a grown up and going through divorce is I hear her sort of in retrospect. Yeah. Considering that, when you think about it, he was a kid. And
right.
And it's a very narcissistic environment. And expecting something from someone who doesn't really need to give it at that time in their life is right. As program would say, it's trying to buy a loaf of bread at the liquor store. And I think that was sort of what she got at some point for herself. And now she's settled in and they're dear friends. Really? Yeah. And hang out all the time with my kids when we have,
so they're grandparents?
Family events. They're grandparents. Chris and Diane. And now I get to see why they would have fallen in love and were a couple because they're hysterical together. Right. And they adore each other's talent and they love talking about movies. Really? And they worked with the same tribe of people. Right. So there's a real common language that, I'm sad they didn't get to explore more in that it's super cool, but for the way they do it, it's kind of great too that they're still family.
Well, isn't it amazing how time just pounds things out?
It does.
Yeah, that eventually you unless you're really committed to spite, eventually things just fade and you get soft, and it's a good thing.
If I could turn our interview into a PSA and say right now for people who are going through the challenge of divorce, I would say, guys, you know what? Just chill out and know that there is a silver lining here, and in 35 years... you guys will really get along and everybody will have fun together. Why are you stressing out when your children have children and have already spent thousands of dollars in therapy going through their multiple damaged marriages and raging at you for what you did to them? You're going to have a really good time with your ex at a birthday party somewhere.
Yeah. Just wait it out.
Wait it out.
Wait it
30
out.
years. Big deal.
Give yourself a break.
I know. There's love. It always circles back to love.
But I think it's interesting to me that you can see that, whatever the love they had initially was genuine because of the way they interact now. I mean, that's kind of beautiful.
It is. It really is.
Why don't you make that movie?
I want them to make that movie. That would be really good.
It would be beautiful, right? Yeah. I don't know how you would do you wouldn't have to do the younger part. You just have to do now. Yeah. Make a documentary.
I do love that. I did a little short about them working together. They worked together some years ago. And my godmother, who was Shelley Winters, was in it too. So the three of them worked together on a movie for Showtime. And it was super funny and fun. And a group of friends and I made a little behind the scenes, which was radical. But it was still new. Because that was 15 years ago, maybe now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Shelley's been dead for a while.
Yeah. Right? So now it would be very different.
Yeah,
I think there's a real closeness. Yeah.
But let's talk about when you started acting, because you're phenomenal, and you've burned yourself into my brain in a peculiar way.
That was my goal, really.
to burn yourself into everyone's brain.
Well, yours at least. You burned yourself into mine. By the way, do people talk about the garage?
At times they do. Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. It's. I'm hanging on to a lot of dreams in terms of reading a lot of these books.
Oh my God.
But I like it. It's my whole life in here.
The images, the posters. This is the spot.
This is new. Look at this signed Iggy Pop record. he was sitting right there, shirtless, where you were.
Wow. I'm going to follow suit in the next 10 minutes.
Wait a minute. I'm not prepared. I could barely keep it together with his boobs out.
I guess that's what people do in the garage.
I should try this out. Iggy took his shirt off. I don't know what you're going to do, but...
Hey, if you want to be a cool artist.
Yeah. But you started acting when you were like, what, 10?
11 was my first professional movie, meaning not an extra on my parents' film or something. Yeah. And I started studying at 9, but I would say when I was 11 and got that first job, I became a serious actor. I was very committed. I was very committed to studying. That was a huge influence, I think, because of my parents' commitment to studying.
Who they both study with, or what you were?
Predominantly at the Actors Studio.
And who was there at that time?
Lee Strasberg was their teacher.
Really?
Yeah, and they, and Lee taught Shelley, and Lee taught Robert De Niro, and a lot of people who I was around as a kid.
Pacino, right?
Yeah, I mean, my God, such amazing actors.
Were you around De Niro as a kid?
A little bit. They did. I mean, Dad did a movie with him. Shelley did a couple movies with him. Mom. And he starred in a movie that Shelley directed on off-Broadway.
Yeah.
So, I was around this tribe of brilliant actors who were very committed to continuing to study while being very revered for their work. You never stopped. And so that was, I think, something that was very ingrained in me.
I don't understand that. I don't know that I'm an okay actor, but I never really studied acting. What is the continuation of that process? It's not something you can learn and go all right, I've got my craft in place. Is there an insecurity to it where you think you have to keep going back to Daddy Strasberg, or how does that work?
I am sure for everybody it's different.
Right.
And I know I've worked with actors who say they've never studied and they're brilliant at their work.
Does that bother you?
And I hate them for it. No. And I've worked with English actors who, did a level of training that I've never done. So, but I was interested in it. I liked it. I think that's the area of my life where being a perpetual student is interesting to me, because I'm not a college grad. And so I put it into the craft of acting and movies and studying film. And I went to RADA for 2 summers because I wanted to be classically trained, even though it was 2 summers at the Royal Academy. But I was interested in Shakespeare. I was interested in everything as a teenager.
As a 10-year-old, were you studying the method? I mean, how much sense memory do you really have?
No. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember being on a plane flying to Reno with my dad when I was 17, and I was 16. I was going to do a movie called Smooth Talk, and I was describing the film to my dad, and I was like, this is my first lead, and it's a very emotional role. Yeah. And he said, well, you can't be a great actor till you have some fucking memories. I mean, you can't even, what do you...
He said that?
It was like, you can't... How do you know what to do? And sort of befuddled. He didn't even know what I was going to do or how I was going to have sort of sense memory or emotional recall or whatever. And I was devastated. Thank God I was savvy enough, far savvier than I am now, to go, are you kidding? With a dad like you, I could have been doing this at 9.
But also you're playing a 16-year-old. It's not like you were playing a 50-year-old.
Exactly.
That you had to make up for some weird space in your memory that wasn't there.
And I would just say that for me, continually studying is about understanding each character differently. It's not trying to capture necessarily what the craft is.
You go in when you have a challenge, and you have a teacher that you're like, all right, I got to do this.
Exactly.
Where do I start?
Exactly. And it's the same teacher since I was 18, named Sandra Seacat, who's amazing and
Is she
totally
like
my mentor.
Is she like one of these people that has a small cult of people?
Yeah, she definitely has a cult.
Yeah,
we're a cult.
Yeah, how many strong are you?
We're pretty. It's and growing.
Yeah.
I think there are a number of us and great actors that she's worked with.
Like who?
For many years. Jessica Lange, she's worked with for many, many years.
Have you worked with her?
I've never worked with Jessica.
Yeah.
No, she's amazing. She's worked with so many people.
And what is her like? I'm sort of fascinated because I'm gonna be an actor now.
Thank God.
Yeah, and
you are an actor.
I am.
You're going to continue acting.
Yeah, I'm just trying to perfect the role of me and move that around.
I mean, hello, exactly.
That's all you got to do, right?
Well, and that's kind of what's awesome about working with her, because it is sort of perfecting the role of us so that we can have. In my case, I love playing people that are hard to find empathy for. That's really interesting to me. And
that's an intentional choice. That's something you look for.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's what turns me on kind of when I read it. I mean, if I struggle with understanding the person or having real compassion for their choices, it makes me want to get in there and figure it out. And so then I feel like I have to go to the deepest places in myself to just sort of figure out, even if it's intuitive, what is it and what are the boundaries and how far do you push it? And I love documentary film, and I love, as I'm sure we share, particularly in the 70s, films and filmmakers that really push the envelope by having very complicated protagonists that are deeply flawed, being the stars of films.
Right, no happy endings.
And that was a huge influence on why I wanted to be in movies. And so I feel like if film can be a service in any way to any of us, it certainly is for me. It's when I'm sitting there, as you expressed in your Noah Baumbach interview about Greenberg, and something's uncomfortable because it feels a little too close. And maybe we ask a question or two, and that's awesome.
And also the idea that, empathy is a broad and open-hearted thing, that in order to connect with a character who's horrible, to find the humanity in the horrible is the best. Because, monsters are lovable. I mean, come on, we've dated them.
Absolutely. And, there's nothing more satisfying than somebody coming up and saying, oh my God, when I saw you, I just hated her. And then by the end, or, particularly on the show I do, people really having a hard time with a character that they grow to love, or in the course of a 2-hour movie.
Being enlightened?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love that thing, and I'm mad, and you better find a home for it so I can figure out what the fuck happened. And I would, because I'm engaged in the story. But I think that character, for any of us who are insecure or searching or self-involved or confused about, don't know the difference between, narcissism and selflessness. Literally don't, cannot figure out why they're doing something and what it serves. I mean, I identify with the character immediately because I'm a broken person. So it wasn't hard for me to empathize, but I did get to that point where it's like, oh my God, she's fucking irritating.
Yes. Oh, I'm so happy.
But I loved her.
I know, me too. I love her so much. I mean, I love her beyond compare.
And your mother was genius.
Wasn't she incredible?
Shit. I mean, I have never seen her act like that.
I know.
It was like the best. It was the best.
She was incredible. And I have to say, I mean, regardless of how great an actor she is, to be a mother and to be a very effusive mother.
Right.
And to be that restrained with your own daughter in the performance is also incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just not a moment that you feel her giving back until really the very end. And I don't see it. It's only for the audience. She has like one private moment of pride of her daughter, and Amy's not anywhere around.
Right.
It's perfect.
And what, in working like that, how deep does she go? I mean, when you guys are off or when they call cut, do you relax, or does she stay in character? I mean, what mode of acting does she come from?
It's so funny, this thing too about method acting. Like, my dad just did a film that's incredible that I can't wait for you to see, called Nebraska, which will come out this fall. That's written, directed by Alexander Payne, and my dad is so amazing in this movie. I'm so excited for him.
Well, he's the guy that sort of builds characters that you like to play in a way.
Yeah, oh, completely. And so watching him work, having worked the last couple of years with my mom, working with friends who are, labeled very method, like Sean Penn and others, Philip Seymour Hoffman, anybody, they call cut and we're just like, anyway, yeah, what did you eat last? God, oh my God, that Indian food was so awesome.
Really?
Yeah, so, if I can only speak to my own experience, but if I'm doing something that's deeply emotional, just for my own focus, I may have to stay very concentrated in the emotion of that, of that storytelling or whatever it is. And that means within those hours that we're filming.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's sustainable to be a character through the course of a movie. It would burn me out. I mean, I need a break even from the character to kind of come back and be inside her. But at the same time, if you're on an emotional roller coaster, which I've been on a couple of times with characters, I think it is hard to separate yourself even if you think you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. So I think there's unconscious method.
Yeah, I think that sometimes, I think that the role that Pacino played in Scarface, he couldn't shake for years, because I saw him on stage doing Mamet's American Buffalo, like a couple years later, and I swear I detected a Cuban accent. Like I still don't. I don't think he had purged it completely.
Yeah.
That when he yelled, it was Tony Montana, even though like he had not, I don't know how you erase that after a certain point. But what do you think that, like I read like something about, who was it? I think it was Wim Wenders saying it about actors saying that, like, they don't, when you talk to them, a lot of times they seem flat only because their vulnerability, they need to protect their emotions because that is the heart of their craft. So they're not going to give that out necessarily just in conversation.
All I can say is I'm hopeful that's true. It sounds like it is for his experience. But if you interviewed anyone I've ever dated, they probably wouldn't describe me as flat.
No, I'm not describing you as that.
No. I mean that's a put down to myself. I mean, I'd like to keep it all in, is what I'm saying.
No, that's your particular genius, is that it's all out all the time, and I'm uncomfortable. Like,
it's probably all out.
As soon as you get on screen, I'm like, oh man, now what's going to happen?
There's a lot going on. But I do think in my life, I like to try to live the opposite. I don't, but I'm certainly attempting it far more than what I like to play on screen. Well,
so do you think that these characters that you're attracted to are some reflection of your own, feelings about yourself, or your own insecurity about being accepted or being empathized for? And
oh, there's all of it for sure. Although I am not, by nature, and I think having been raised by big personalities, I really liked to keep the peace. I really liked to find peace. I was scared by big emotion.
Yeah.
Growing up, which is odd. And yet, it's comfortable to me to be around big personalities.
Sure.
So, in a way, sometimes I think I play characters that I'm trying to understand better. Because I've loved them.
Yeah.
Even if they're not a reflection of me. So parts of them are myself and parts of them are people I've loved. Well, in family and that I've acquired in life. Because I want to have less judgment and better understanding, because we are all in this mess together, and we do have a lot of anger. And that was a big thing for me in terms of Enlightened, was really trying to understand rage. And can rage become a gift? How can you, if harnessed for a cause, can it achieve something, or is it just toxic?
Well, if you were to ask my ex-wife, she would say, no, rage is not a gift of any kind, and I left depleted for a reason.
Right.
But if you were to ask the people that listen to me on lefty political talk radio, they would say, well, rage is, it was important. But I've talked about that a lot in the sense that to differentiate, to decide who you want to be as a person.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're angry about things, and you think they're righteous things,
right.
But yet you don't address
the existential anger that you're experiencing, or the familial, sort of family of origin stuff that has been toxic in your life. You just keep going on raging about things, thinking it's righteous. At some point, you have to deal with the core stuff to find the sadness or the loss or whatever the hell is there, right?
Totally.
And did you have to do that with that character or in your own life?
Certainly with the character, and therefore to try to understand it for myself. I mean, that's the complicated thing about Amy is she does things, she takes horrible routes to achieve her goals, and yet she affects change. By the end of these 2 seasons, her mother is a different person. Her ex-husband is a different person. They're also the same, but they've been inspired by her in their own way. And this massive corporation may never change, so it may be gone. And that's also partly her impact. So it's pretty fascinating to see how...
But does she change? Because, is somebody that is sort of narcissistic going to is it just going to feed that, right?
I mean, that's why I think Mike and I both dreamt of one more season, because I think in a way we saw the trilogy from the beginning of, I mean, he beautifully saw, how does someone fall apart and then come back together? Mm-hmm. That was really interesting to him.
But it's a little vague why she was in, treatment in the first place, other than she got angry.
Yeah, she has a rage issue.
Do you have that?
No.
You've never felt the warmth of hate in your heart?
Oh, yeah. But I don't, and I've lost it, sure, but I'm not someone who is a rager or can't control my anger or
but
road
you grew
rage.
Up with a little of that?
Oh, yeah. I've grown up around a lot of it, and I've experienced a lot of it in the people I've loved. And
it's horrible.
It's horrible. And we all get, in love, we all get super triggered, and it's, if somebody else is reactive, it's hard not to get reactive back and to really detach. And oh my God, that's.
But when you're a kid and you go through that, the only once you stop crying and once you get past the horrendous boundaryless assault of someone else's emotional shrapnel flying around all the time, you sort of shut down and you kind of realize well, I guess I'm going to have to take care of me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you kind of get insulated, and then, I don't know, that was my experience. I mean, you try to control, your immediate environment.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If nobody's there letting you know that it's not your job,
right,
that stuff's going to come up at some point.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a parent has to sort of take that bag from you, or you're holding the bag till you become a grown-up and it all starts all over.
Right,
it's such a mess.
And you run around collecting, furious people.
Yeah, which is interesting.
And you watch them spin around and go, I'm trying to help you.
I mean, listen, we do it as a country. So as Americans, since we're doing it in our citizen life, why wouldn't we do it in our personal life? If we go, I know, we'll get a guy who bases everything on fear and is going to build the machine so nobody's going to ever get to us. We'll just bomb them first, and we're going to protect ourselves with our machine. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're either going to live by fear in every area, or we're going to somehow completely change it to our core. And in answer to the question about Amy, I mean, I think she's someone who wants to change it to the core,
right?
But only grows incrementally. But she, at the end, she definitely makes false moves, but contains herself in such elegant ways comparatively to the person we started with.
Sure.
And the very last image of our second season, she sees herself on the cover of the LA Times. And she doesn't even pick up the paper. She's achieved her goal, which is using her voice. And so you start to wonder, was she a narcissist? Was she an egomaniac? Or was she egocentric enough to believe she could change the world and actually tried to do it, but didn't try to do it to become a star? which is unusual in the world. So she's complicated.
Right.
She's all things.
But there's also that dynamic of the, like her mother was, emotionally detached. Mm-hmm. So that there's a rage that just needs to be satisfied.
Totally.
So like there's also that feeling of like, la 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 la, it's out, I'm good. Are you okay? Why are you crying?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So like that feeling of like not picking up the paper was whatever she was doing might have been sated before that. Like it was done.
Absolutely.
So let's go back and talk about when you really realized that this was where you were going to go with how you were going to run your career, or how you were going to who you were going to seek out to play when you started making actual choices as opposed to just taking movies.
Yeah. It's funny, like if I may be so brazen and arrogant as to assume I'm part of your tribe, me being such a huge fan of yours, but I
We're the same
admire
generation.
your taste. And so, the people you want to interview, the movies you comment on that you love. I mean, we are the same generation and we happen to love the same things, and what I've heard and learned about you.
We're the lost generation of the crashing 60s.
That's us. So, exactly. So for us, and those of us who belong to that tribe, I mean, it wasn't really a choice. It was what I knew. Like, I grew up, and my parents, when I was at, for me, becoming an actor, formative years, in that I was making a decision to become an actor between probably 7 and 12.
Yeah.
In those 5 years, the directors my parents were with, the people I was around were,
Rafelson,
Hal Ashby, Bob Rafelson, Altman, Hitchcock, Martin Scorsese.
Hopper?
And Hopper was there, and Harry Dean was there, and Jack Nicholson was there.
And you were how old? You were just hanging around?
7 to 12.
That's crazy!
So, and Roger Corman, of course.
Yeah.
So, in a way...
But wait, set the stage. What was it like? Were we in Laurel Canyon? Was it a party? Were there couches, beanbags?
We were in Idlewild. We were in Santa Monica. We were in Malibu. We were in Valencia.
Wherever the money came from?
Yeah, we were wherever the location was, or we were hanging out. And, and I was watching major collaboration, big hearts, no raging, lots of kindness on set, real what do you think, whether you're a grip, a gaffer, an actor, craft service, my DP, the director formula that I grew up around was, we're all making this thing and whoa, this is so awesome and we're here and nobody's really making money, but we're having a blast and this is the vision and what do you think and what do you think?
What was that? Well, now I'm spacing the movie where your dad played the vet that comes
Coming
back.
Home.
Coming Home.
Hal Ashby.
So so that was the Hal Ashby movie. So you were on that set.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it was very little, but...
What are some of the memories of, like, watching any of these guys where you were like, holy shit? Like, I mean, is there, like... I know it's hard to focus on that specifically, but there are certain moments in your life that you probably remember.
I remember very vividly Martin Scorsese directing my mom and Ellen Burstyn in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And they had a brilliant and beautiful scene, 2 scenes that I remember vividly that I was there for. One is in a bathroom.
Yeah.
Where... my mom, Ellen's crying, and my mom follows her in the toilet to talk about being single moms together. And my mom talks about how her daughter has to have a bunch of dental work and she can't pay for the, dentist. And halfway through the scene, I'm looking at the pages I'm holding. I mean, I've just started reading people. Yeah. And they're not saying the stuff that's on the page.
Right.
And Scorsese's telling them, talk about this, talk about your necklace, touch your hair, throwing ideas out, and they keep rolling, and and then suddenly it's 2 women talking about their lives and the men they've lost, and are they enough to raise a kid on their own? And I literally remember starting to cry because I was so moved by the honesty of these 2 women, and it was all happening in the moment, and he was so much more than a filmmaker. He was this guide on the journey to themselves in a way. And I was so moved by that.
Yeah.
Equally, same summer, my dad was doing a Hitchcock film, Family Plot, which was...
Late Hitchcock.
Hitchcock.
Almost the last one, right?
Yeah, and very regimented.
He was a taxi driver or something?
Yes, exactly.
I remember.
Karen Black and Barbara Harris. Yeah. And they were all around, and it was like being on a comedy set.
Yeah.
He loved being entertained. He loved it funny.
Who, Hitchcock?
Hitchcock.
Yeah.
He had them make a little mini director's chair and put it next to him for me to sit in. I mean, that's like insane. How did I get this life? But of course, jump forward to 15, 16 and the auditions I didn't get. I mean, there are paths that found me and directors that found me. This isn't just I came up with this by choice. But, I auditioned for a Bogdanovich movie and a Brat Pack movie. And I got the Bogdanovich movie. Then I started to get to make choices.
That was Little Foxes?
No, that was Mask.
Okay. Oh, yeah, he directed
Mask,
that. That's right. And you were the
blind girl, And then maybe
that was heavy, emotional thing.
Yeah.
That's pretty beautiful.
And he's, and he was part of that tribe by chance.
Right.
But, and then the next year, Smooth Talk came at a time that it was the first time I was offered a sort of formulaic teen movie that probably would have brought me lots of success. And Blue Velvet. And I had an agent read Blue Velvet and be like, oh my God, you can't do this movie. This is so offensive. So suddenly now I'm an almost 17-year-old trying to decide what kind of movies do I want to make. And it wasn't necessarily brave or not. It was kind of what I knew.
Right.
I met David Lynch. He seemed like the kind of people I grew up around.
Dennis was in it. I'd just seen Elephant Man, which was one of my favorite movies of all time. I saw Eraserhead, which I was just obsessed with. It was my orientation. I felt like I'd found my people. Right.
So
you grew up in the sort of high-minded, risky, kind of art movie world of the 70s. That was, on some level, that explosion that your parents were involved in, that you grew up in, was just the most defining era of American movies.
And let's be clear, there was another parent in the house.
Yeah.
And Paul Thomas Anderson is the only person I've talked to about this, because he also lived in the Valley at the same time and at the same school for a couple of years. There was my mother.
Yeah.
There was my father.
Yeah.
Both working actors.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah.
Who was my babysitter?
Who?
Z Channel. And there weren't restrictions, buddy.
Yeah.
So I was 11 and I was watching Clockwork Orange.
Right.
Or Luna.
Yeah.
And I was like, Mom, it was so heavy, and she's in love with her son, and she's an opera singer, and it's Jill Clayburgh, and unmarried woman, sobbing on, this is what it's like to be a woman.
And you were what, 15, 14?
12, 11. I saw Clockwork Orange when I was 11.
And Paul Thomas Anderson related to this?
Yeah. There were a couple of cable networks that we all, and Maya Rudolph, his wife, that we all kind of growing up in LA grew up on and saw everything.
Right.
So we were learning about, God help us, relationship and what the world looked like and where you stretch boundaries and that
darkness.
People are complicated. Dog Day Afternoon. I mean, to me, that was one of the sweetest men I'd ever seen on screen.
Unbelievable.
I loved him. I wanted him in my family, and so I grew up knowing that you don't judge people in film.
Yeah.
And I guess long for that in life. So I wanted to kind of keep doing that.
Isn't it amazing when you watch that movie and you watch sort of what Pacino became and you're like, is that guy still in there?
I saw it.
And then he does Jack Kevorkian and you're like, it is kind of in there.
It is. Like, oh my God, he's amazing in that.
It was so relieving to see him play Jack Kevorkian with all that weird vulnerability and it blows me away, man.
Blows me away.
All right, so you choose to do Blue Velvet. Now, could you wrap your brain, even watching Bergman and everything else on the Z Channel or whatever you were watching, I mean, could you wrap your brain around that script? I mean, in terms of what it really looked like?
Yes, in that somehow I think I understood him in terms of light versus dark, Sandy, my character, versus Dorothy, the overtness of sort of the Wizard of Oz aspect of David, the good witch and the bad witch, and the witness to all of it, the boy on the journey, which in case of me kind of turned to me in more recent movies maybe. So whether it's a boy or a girl as the lead, someone's on a journey and they're exposed to extreme opposites.
Did he explain it to you like that?
No, he never said a word to me. He's never said a word to me still. People are like, what's Inland Empire about? Don't ask me.
I don't know.
I mean, I loved every minute of it, and he taught me so much about acting, but he's never told me a word about it.
Really?
Never. And there was
so
no script.
explanation, but you had conversations.
Not really. We talk about coffee and...
But it's okay. So you're 17 and you're choosing to go, into the Lynchian universe as opposed to like, what are you guys doing? Universe.
Exactly. And he definitely talked to me about what he wanted from me as Sandy. And it was innocent and pure. And, the beauty of David, which is also what I think makes his movies so funny. And I think what makes Mike White so funny and a lot of other people we love as writers and as filmmakers is the part that is poetry is God to them. And even though we're laughing, it means everything to them. And it's fiercely protected, just like what's dark is deeply dark. And that's where the humor is. It's that the world's insane because we're trying to handle life being this extreme. And that is so funny. And David, I think, becomes so funny because there's an absurdity to his movies. But in fact, that's what, growing up in the Northwest obviously felt like. It was white picket fences and there was murders down the street. I mean, something's crazy in this country and he's just reflecting it. And we go, God, his movies are so weird. Really? Because CNN looks just like that.
Except not as articulate and pretty.
Not quite as pretty.
The framing's not as good.
But I didn't understand at 17 the Frank Booth part of that movie. I think I just had the feeling of it, but I don't think
any
really
of us
get
did.
Yeah.
I think that, when that happened, I mean, if you were 17 when you did it, I was 19 or 18 when I saw it.
Yeah.
So, when we went to see that, I think it was maybe my last year of high school. When did it come out? 81 or something?
80, came out in 85.
Really?
Yeah. 85, 86.
Really? So I was already I was in college, but that Frank Booth character, that was, I don't think anybody, it just represented some sort of pure human darkness that was vague and incredibly defined at the same time.
Totally.
Yeah, no,
And I remember doing the last scene of the movie and kind of not knowing much about it. And interestingly, even though David doesn't say much about sort of theme of the film or whatever, he wouldn't, I would hang out and visit certain scenes when I wasn't working, but the Frank Dorothy world, I never came to set and he never let me come.
Because you were too young?
I think just
was it protective?
No, I think it was like keeping Sandy out of it, like keeping the goodness away from the darkness or something.
Well, it's interesting because your goodness was like when your goodness sort of got angry and desperate. There was something not grotesque, but something verging on a possible darkness there too.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I remember when we shot that scene. And he said, you're going to go into the set. We won't rehearse. Just walk into to Dorothy's apartment and whatever you see, just respond to it however you would respond to it. And I remember walking in.
Oh my God, when she was like bleeding, wasn't she bleeding?
Yes, and I have this little pink dress on. I remember looking down at my dress and it had these little flowers and I was walking with sandals and at my sandals I was stepping on Brain.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked down, I thought, what is that? Is that dog shit? Is that, no, that's a body part. Oh, that's blood. Wait, oh my God, I think that's real Brain. Is that, and I still don't know what to use, but let me tell you something.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a prosthetic, people.
It's some kind of brain.
It was some kind of brain.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm so glad that's the only time I was ever in that apartment. That's all I can say. How we've continued to make movies.
And then you embraced, right? Or did what? I can't remember how the scene went.
I can't either. I haven't seen it in so many years. We just talked about that actually. We were saying we should see it again. And Wild at Heart. I mean, I haven't seen those movies in so long.
Wild at Heart's a trippy movie, too.
It's so trippy. I love that movie.
I haven't seen it in a long time, either. So you just rode that out like, Lynch called you and said, you're right for this, do this? And that's a road movie.
Yeah,
basically.
It's a road movie.
Right.
And it's, in a lot of ways, an amazing opportunity to have a director who knows you and feels in his mind he knows you well enough to constantly ask you to play very different people. And that's the beauty of my great fortune with David is he believes I can play anything instead of going, you did this for me, keep doing this.
Right.
So Lula was this amazing departure from the kinds of roles I was being asked to do. And I was Sandy in Blue Velvet. I was the blind girl in Mask. I mean, even though I had done this film Smooth Talk, which was a small indie and a very kind of sexualized character in a way, I wasn't really known for that.
Right.
And Lula was kind of a sex siren of sorts. And so it was just amazing for me.
Was it comfortable, or how did you enter that? I mean,
Very
had
comfortable.
you turned that on before in your life? I mean, was that one of those things?
No, I mean, I was 22, you know, so I was so young, and I mean, I was comfortable in it and exploring it for the movie, and so I think it just so happened that at the exact same moment of that movie, I was interested in it in my life, that kind of energy, and I couldn't ask for
the power of it.
Not necessarily the power of it, the sensual experience of knowing your own sexuality and feeling what not just the euphoria of love feels like, but you know, being sexy and finding something else sexy. And Nick Cage was so amazing to work with and so crazy brave, and that was such an amazing amazing time in his career where he was constantly doing everything I was inspired to do. So he was like the perfect partner for me. And Sailor and Lula were like the perfect couple to play together at that time in our lives.
When you looked at that script, how did that frame out in your mind? Were you just sort of like, this is sort of like Candide or some sort of weird journey, and you know, where you meet all ththese weird characters along the way, or how did you look at that?
I mean, just total bliss. You know, I feel like David's, you know, it is like a family member, and maybe, you know, in the outside world, someone would say, you know, her dad is like an addict and crazy. Other families don't look like this, but you're in it, so you don't know what other things are supposed to be look like. And David's like, okay, you're gonna, you know, pick up, they're basically the Munchkins. You're gonna pick them up on the road. They have 12 puppies. Then you guys are gonna have sex, and you're gonna pick up a girl, and then you're gonna go here. Your mother is gonna be there. I'm having your mother play your mother. She's gonna be riding a broom. What? She's the Wicked Witch. Stop asking so many questions. Then I was like, what? Okay. So, I mean, you're in it. You got to just go. And it was definitely my upbringing. And now with David or any director, I don't need to ask. I'm just happy for the ride.
Yeah. And when you did, what is it, Rambling Rose? So that was one where you had to not only harness your sexuality, but be very aware of how powerful it was and what you could use it for.
Totally. And then it's a very different thing.
And you got to work with Duvall, which
was amazing.
I can't even fucking imagine.
It was amazing.
He's like the best.
He's the best. He's the best. And he was really amazing with me. And it was really a complicated relationship.
Yeah.
You know, he's this very loving, sort of archetypal father and husband. And yet, you know, he's messing around with a nanny. Yeah. So you know, and I'm messing around with a 14-year-old boy who's, you know, I mean, I don't think the movie could be made now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing it and just being like, what the fuck?
I know. It's really...
Because and on top of it, I think what made it even more powerful was sort of a period piece. You know, was set, in the 30s or what?
Yeah.
And it was, because then you're all of a sudden dealing with that, the idea that like all this complicated sort of darkness and within the family that happened then. It's not just cool pictures of things.
Oh yeah. And very commonly a girl as young as 19, 20 would be given a hysterectomy if she had sex that was premarital sex in the South.
Oh yeah.
So just the whole concept of a woman's sexuality at that time in this country was kind of amazing to explore. But that whole time, I think what I'm still doing now, but it was a huge time for me to start really blurring the lines because I was working with the right people. I was with people who wanted her to be a wild innocent and perhaps manipulative. There was no one thing or the other. And David really set the tone of that for my career. Rambling Rose was a big turning point for that, not only in terms of the writing, Calder Willingham's beautiful novel, which it's based on and he adapted. And it's a true story. It's his childhood.
Right.
And so Rose was a real person to him that he considered a true innocent. So really kind of carrying that story, working with Alexander Payne on Citizen Ruth, same thing. They were all saying, you know, this is a boundaryless opportunity. So you play this person completely and however you play it, it would be nice if people can be with you on the ride, but we're not seeking empathy. And that's a different requirement than a lot of directors.
A lot of freedom to find. You have a very specific, empowered, female energy. Mm-hmm. That like no one takes the risks you do really in terms of like pushing the emotions to the point where you're like, oh my God, I don't know whether I love her. I just can't fucking be in this room anymore. I can't.
I mean, at some point, I pray you and I will sit in your garage again, 10, 20 years from now, and I'll say, God, enough of these gals have rubbed off on me, and I really don't care what anybody thinks. Because as an actor, I really don't.
Yeah.
I really, really don't. And I just, nothing makes me happier. The only compliment I've ever wished for and longed for is that compliment of, I felt all these complicated feelings about her, and by the end, I really kind of grew to love her. I was sort of rooting for her. I couldn't believe it. I hated myself for rooting for her, but I did. Whatever that thing is. I mean, one of the biggest challenges as an actor I ever had by such an amazing director. Truly, one of the great directors of all time, the loveliest human being, such a brave man is Mr. J. Roach. Mm-hmm. He's so funny. He's so all the things we know. But emotionally as a director, he is inspired and finds the muse for his story in the darkest place.
Yeah.
And that forces you to really not judge.
Which film?
We did Recount together for HBO,
right.
and I had to play Secretary of State Catherine Harris.
The monster.
Exactly. And I'm very known for my opinions politically.
Sure.
And had very strong ones about her and that time in history, as so many of us did. And so I remember, day one on the set for the first time ever on a movie, making a joke. Like, oh my God, can you believe her? Mm-hmm. And he just nailed me and was like, whoa, she's my muse. What do you mean? Excuse me?
Right, yeah.
What do you mean? We hate what they did, right?
Yeah.
Look at the laws that were broken. Look at people whose voices were stolen from them. It's like, no, but she believed she was doing what was right for this country. And I was like, whoa. and it's what takes you from the attempt at a skit on SNL where you can go as big as possible to create a caricature of sorts.
Right.
And really find the humanity in a person who was going to protect this country for God's sake.
Right.
By making sure the right guy won.
Literally, for God's sake.
For God's sake.
Yeah.
And if you have to steal some votes, that's what you got to do.
Because you're doing this for God.
Yeah.
And she believed that. And that's what moved him, was her commitment to her ideal.
And that's a level of narcissism that's fascinating, too. I mean,
the delusion of God commitment.
In a way, it's you've got to believe so fiercely that your God is the only God, which I am a believer, and I love every path, and I'm always interested in anything anybody's got to say, and I want to read as many books as possible in every religion because I think it's fascinating.
Right.
But wow, growing up as a Catholic, I was like, wait a minute, I believe in one holy Catholic and apostolic church? That was hard for me. I believe in one religion. My mom and I were like, huh? Mom was like, no, we don't. We believe in a lot of religions.
Yeah.
This happens to be ours right now, but hold on, guys.
That's how you grew up?
I was raised Catholic by a very Catholic grandmother, but my mom was a meditator since I was a kid, and we would go to Catholic church. I went to Catholic school for several years.
So that's weird, because you were probably, in between the first real departure of generations from that.
Totally.
The whole tone culturally of the 60s was like, hey, cut loose, man.
Absolutely.
And then you had the staunch kind of like tradition of her, and there you were in the middle of this.
Yeah. Which was super lucky, actually. Yeah. And I think it's part of this acting path too, because both things are true.
Sure. What do you give your kids religion-wise?
Funnily enough, I just said to my son the other day, we got to start going back to church. He was like, really?
How old is he?
He's 11.
Uh-huh.
But I love ritual.
Yeah.
So as a meditator, as someone who does yoga, as someone who loves the ritual of church and saints and prayer
Good
and
stories.
candles and storytelling. I love that for my kids and for myself. Like I loved having that in my childhood. And that's the one bummer if you don't have your ritual of Sundays is about that or, but for me, going to church for an hour was rhetoric and non-connection and not groovy.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of places people go now that's about, music and fun and celebration.
If you just tweak ritual a little bit, I mean, yeah, the Catholic Church was non-groovy, but if the priest was wearing something different and the music was a little groovier, people would be like, this is all right.
If you're at St. Monica's in Santa Monica and they're talking about same-sex couples and honoring everybody in the congregation, you're like, whoa, something cool's going on here. It's actually about equality. So there's that. I mean, I have very strong opinions about human rights, one of the human rights being a woman's right to choose. So it becomes very complicated for me to have any opinion the minute anyone's setting rules for an individual.
Sure.
And yet, I love spiritual practice and ritual.
Well, when you say meditation, what do you do? Are you like a TM person?
I am a TM person.
Did Lynch get you into that?
He actually wasn't the first person to get me into that.
Yeah.
But he's inspired me to kind of stay far more regular than I was for years.
Well, will you explain to me? So it's not, it's just a system. It's not a community.
No, I mean, it is for many people a community and certainly was in the 60s. There is a guru to follow in the 60s. There always was.
Is there one
practices
now?
Of meditation. The Maharishi is no longer
right
in this life, but people may still honor him.
Right,
and I've had different practices of meditation, and in a couple of cases there were gurus, teachers who came from India to teach that practice of meditation or yoga, and all of them have inspired me deeply. But in terms of as a practice, TM is used by corporations, it's used by the Lakers, it's used in the NFL, it's used as truly a systematic practice to dive in terms of a deeper level of focus.
Do I need to do it?
Dude, you totally do.
Well, what do you get out of it?
For me,
yeah,
I have an ability I never had before. When I'm consistent, I can consistently have it. And that is, I can literally feel all the feelings that I have in the face of someone throwing something at me, and actually take that breath they tell you about and detach a little. And I know it comes from every day making a commitment for 20 minutes to let go of every other thought in my head, where there's a silence and there's a connection to only self. And if you have that practice as an actor, as an artist anyway, it's hugely influential on my work, because I know how to be in the moment. And it takes a few minutes to get all those cobwebs out and just focus on one thing. But as an actor, I need that desperately to make everything else go away.
Is detachment tricky for you?
Oh, completely. Almost impossible.
Do you do the Secret Club too?
What's that?
Al-Anon or anything like that?
Oh, the Secret Club? Is that what it's called?
That's what I call it on the air.
I love the Secret Club. You're kidding? I wouldn't be here without the Secret Club. You heard me use my slogan. I used a slogan earlier.
I know.
And by the way, that's all part of the same thing too. But TM is, when I hear athletes talk about the practice of meditation, that's a real turn on, because they're literally applying it to talk about how their level of focus in the game, their mindfulness in the moment, being in the moment in a very high stress situation is so much better. So why wouldn't we all need it? We live in high stress all the time.
What's the alternative to the moment? I know, like, if you have sort of like the type of childhood you had, there's a tendency towards wanting to control and sort of try to tell the future. So the difference between being in the moment and it's just being in your head, right?
I'm going to tell a story about an actress, and I hope she hears it one day, and I haven't seen her in years, and I hope she w't mind me sharing it, but it's just...
You're going to leave her unnamed?
No, I'll say her name, because it's so adorable about you, Winona Ryder, that I'm going to tell it, because it's so adorable. So I said, I can't live in the moment. I'm like between the past and the future. I'm thinking about, oh my God, if only I had made that choice, then that wouldn't have happened. And And if I had done this, then I bet he wouldn't have gotten so upset because I can control everybody's behavior. But in the future, if I make my life look just like that and I get it just right and I do everything perfect, then maybe everybody else will fall in place. Amy Jellicoe. So, but no awareness that there's a moment happening right now. And I shared this with Winona, and we were 18. Yeah. She was like, wow, really? That's how you live? That's interesting. Yeah, I don't really relate to that or something. And then, 3 days later, she calls me up. She goes, oh my God, I've just been diagnosed. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I went to a therapist and I have something. It's a real disease. And I said, what is it called? She said, it's called anticipatory nostalgia. And I said, what does it mean? She goes, well, I don't know how he diagnosed it so quick. And I said, what did you say? She said, I walked in crying. And he said, why are you crying? She said, I was laying in bed this morning thinking one day my son will be going off to college and leaving this house. And I said, Winona, you're 18. You don't have a son. And I thought it was so brilliant. And I so relate to that disease.
Yeah.
It's like, what if one day a very close friend of mine who said, I was thinking I'll pull up and this is OCD based too, but it also is that disease of like making choices now that might affect the future. She was like, the rug in the living room wasn't working and it was 2 a.m. And I thought, I'm going to pull up the rug. And I thought, I can't. Because this rug is the last rug I would have bought for my daughter if something happens to me. And then if I lose the rug, I thought, whoa. I mean, just all the fear of, again, the future or the mistakes of the past. And I was very affected by my grandmother, really nostalgic over a lost love till the end of her life. And it broke my heart. And I thought, I don't want to do that. So I call everyone I've ever dated. No. To either say, I'll never be with you again.
But that's interesting though, how you like hold on, like even investing certain mystical properties to a rug as having, implications that if you disrupt the order, I get that all the time. Yeah. And then I never really put it together in terms of like somebody holding on to a pain or a broken heart.
Exactly. Me too.
It's consistency.
Exactly.
That it's based in fear and like the pain is familiar, and why not stay there?
And that's what they say about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. In children, it's usually happening during a divorce when there's been a great loss, some kind of trauma.
Yeah, sure.
It's some way of, control. And that's what's interesting is we all do it differently. That's why I say I look forward to learning more and more from my characters because, there's a lot to learn from the abandon that one has when they're really not considering the outcome of their actions or what other people think.
It's great.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So to play...
You just got to be willing to take the hit if you hurt a couple people.
Exactly. And listen, if you're a narcissist and you don't even clock that, it must be awesome.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I can ask my dad if we were talking. But,
as I said to a friend the other day, they said, in your work on yourself and all the things you do in your work, what have you gained? What have you learned? I'm like, I'm really jealous of alcoholics. Sort of what I'm feeling this week.
They want.
It's awesome.
Well, you must have, not to be too personal, but I assume that learning from characters is one thing, but you've certainly made a lot of very distinctive choices in mates over your career.
Totally. Fairly
charismatic, kind of, erratic people.
Yes.
You must have gleaned something. What's the range? Jeff Goldblum, Billy Bob, Rennie Harlan. It's all very public.
You're breaking it down. Yeah. What have I learned? And especially because I'm just coming out of a very long a long marriage in terms of what I've seen.
Ben Harper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I would say, I suddenly what feels like home isn't necessarily comfortable anymore. Mm. And that's cool. Mm-hmm. It's cool when you start to go, wow, I want to feel different things.
If home was chaos.
Yeah.
Right.
Or not knowing where you stood or not knowing what anybody was going to feel from day to day.
Right.
not even taking into account the characters that raised me, but the mere lifestyle of people who work away and divorced families, just that environment. And like, it's grandma, it's a babysitter, it's mom, I'm with dad. Just that kind of lifestyle is,
there's no way to
I wasn't attracted to consistency.
Right.
People assume that what I was attracted to was extreme drama. And maybe that's the case. I mean, I love artists and I always will. And I'm interested in people who have something to say and they really want to say it. That's super cool to me, but there are a lot of different ways to do that and a lot of professions out there.
Yeah.
But I'm just starting to kind of become a grown-up where consistency is intriguing to me.
Well, you can sit with yourself better. I mean, when you're in a completely sort of emotionally erratic situation where you don't know what's going to happen next, there's always that juice of like, oh fuck, now we gotta, like the ability to kind of like just be okay with that frequency that is you. It can be boring at first, right?
Well, yeah, because if you think your job is to manage it, then you have no job.
Right.
So it's like, well, what am I going to do now? I got all this free time. Shit. I mean, how much yoga can a person do? Horseback riding? Really? Take it up at 40? I mean, when everybody talks about getting hobbies, I'm like, oh, Jesus, I forgot to do that.
I have emotional hobbies.
I know.
You just got to find the right person to drive you crazy.
I mean, I am the luckiest person alive in that my hobby really is acting. It's the hobby I love the most.
Right.
And I get to call it a job. So, I'm trying everything because I've got kids. So I'm surfing or we're stand-up paddling or we're longboarding or, I'm like, cool, let's do this. And that's cool. And some of them are things I did as a kid. But I don't have an obsession, which I think is good for me, by the way, right now in my life. But I'm loving exercise. That's awesome. And I never liked that.
Yeah, I got to get back into that.
Shit, when you like it suddenly, and I've never liked it.
You just got to cross that threshold.
Yeah, suddenly I'm liking it. It's like fun to me.
You can get obsessed with that and you can get really weirdly thin and think you look great. I'm
in that right now.
Like, is she dying? No, I'm great.
Oh my God. Who needs eating? This is awesome. Soul Cycle every day, no food.
It sounds like it's becoming an obsession, so you're focused.
Yeah.
That's another thing that all your characters seem to have is an obsessive passion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's huffing paint, which is not my passion, which is probably good.
You never a drug person?
Never.
You lucked out there. Something must have turned you off early on.
It sure did, man. Yeah, I got really lucky. And who knew that seeing it would be the turnoff?
Well, that happens with people whose parents smoke too. I mean, like it's going to go either way.
Yeah.
What'd you see?
I mean, I saw people's behavior, which was probably the early detector, and not my parents, but other people's behavior
hanging
around
out.
them.
Yeah, just sort of like, why is he acting weird?
Yeah, and like the behavior didn't feel comfortable. It was like they're not themselves now.
Right.
That's not so fun.
Oh, yeah.
So that was weird as a kid. But I did a movie when I was 12. Called Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains, which was directed by Lou Adler. Diane Lane, who's still one of my best friends, I'm lucky to say. And so we went off and did this movie in Vancouver for about 4 months, probably.
Yeah.
And our co-stars were a member of The Clash, 2 members of the Sex Pistols, Ray Winstone, a now beloved great English actor, was a kid then. And they were the band that we toured with.
Right.
We were a punk band. Mm-hmm. And the Tubes and a lot of bands were in and around it, and a lot of bands, because they were friends with Lou, the Boomtown Rats, the Who. But those guys would come through town to do their show, and then they would hang out. So we were around incredible musicians.
Yeah.
And also, a lot of recreational activity. And I had an amazing experience, which is someone took me aside at that time and told me that I'd be an idiot to ever do any of it. Mm. And he was definitely, exploring in his own way, and a huge punk star.
He was in trouble.
And I don't know if he was in trouble at the time.
Because that usually comes from a guy who can't stop.
And who had, more importantly, he'd lost someone. Not that recently. Right. I mean, very recently.
Yeah.
So it was his warning, and I never forgot it. And my mom was an amazing mom in that way. She never addressed it in a judgmental way. She was like, look, if this is something you're ever interested in.
Right.
People can do crazy stuff with chemicals. I don't trust what they're doing even with pot. People say it's, healthy and it's like homegrown, but, they lace stuff. They do. I don't want you out at a party with kids who are driving. Tell me if you're interested. I would want to know. I'd want you to be in this house if you were going to explore drinking or anything. So, if I wanted to have a beer or whatever, I did it in my own house with friends, which some people might judge. But guess what? I was never that interested. I was never in a car with people drunk.
Yeah.
And my rule was I had to do it at home, and we never got loaded. First of all, my mom was there.
Right. Who wants to get loaded with your mom?
And drugs were totally uninteresting to me. And I just don't like, I guess it's the benefit of my managing crazy.
Right. You don't want to be...
I don't like being so out of control that I can't manage myself. That scares me a lot.
Unless you're doing it on purpose, in a role.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, emotionally it's cool. Yeah. In love, in romance and sexuality, I mean, there's lots of ways to explore and feel unabashed in your exploration.
Yeah.
But to be on a chemical that's altering my brain.
Yeah.
I just, and everybody's drugged now. It's just what you do. But also, I don't know. I kind of want to know what depression feels like or anxiety. That's how I kind of clock where I'm at. So when I'm doing better, I can know, this is better. It's not the Wellbutrin doing it to me.
Yeah.
But
I've made progress.
I get it. Yeah. I get it a lot. But I'm probably doing very poorly, but
No, you're not.
I'm doing it with, meditation.
No, what do you do? You're doing it old school. I mean,
I'm going old school with my depression.
So I'm going to fight it out. I want to be aware of this fight. I'm going to plow through this.
Exactly.
So, how many, before we stop, how many Jurassic Parks are there happening? What, you done 3?
I've done 1 and 3.
Yeah.
There have been 3, and there's supposed to be a 4th, which right now I'm not in, and they were doing it, and now... I don't know. I think it's delayed now.
Yeah. What, they're having a hard time, with getting money for dinosaurs?
Yeah, probably, yeah. It wasn't a popular movie originally, so they're probably worried if it's ever going to do anything. Yeah. But I was lucky to do it with Steven, and that was the amazing part. And it was a first time for everybody, including ILM. I mean, there'd never been
it was pretty amazing
computer
for
graphics
all of us.
In that way. So
in the theater we were like, oh my god,
it was so crazy.
Well, now he seems like as a director, compared to some of the other people you talk to, he seems like a manager and very sort of together. And how did that work?
He's amazing because he's both things. He always laughs because I did a interview in Rolling Stone when the movie came out, and I compared him to David Lynch and said how similar I thought they were, and he was just mind blown that I had said that. But
in what way? He knows what he wants?
Well, first of all, is there any filmmaker? And everybody's like, whoa, the blockbuster, Steven Spielberg. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. He's insane. He went, I'm going to make a movie about an alien and a kid's friendship. I'm going to make a movie about a killer shark that makes people lose their minds and become obsessed with getting this fish. Whatever it is, it in a way is sort of an insane concept that then became the box office hit.
Right.
But it was the indie movie when he was coming up with it.
Sure.
And Close Encounters is such a masterpiece to me. Oh my God, I love that movie so much. And
what kills me about that is his casting of Francois Truffaut.
Oh my God, it's so incredible.
But it's just I read into it so much that Truffaut was the guy that was overseeing the communication with the alien. That was sight and sound, which is the metaphor for
the ultimate cinema.
Right.
Totally.
Did you? I'm not crazy, right?
Not only are you not crazy, but I just want you to know, and I've never shared this, that I got a 8x10 glossy on Hollywood Boulevard where you could go through the files from movies just to find, because there wasn't the internet. Yes, I'm old. And found a picture of Francois Truffaut for my room because he's my ultimate crush.
Yeah.
Oh, I was so in love with him. Oh my God.
Those are great.
He was saving art and culture and beauty and faith.
Yeah.
and let him actually explore what he wanted to explore, the hero being Richard Dreyfuss. But one of my favorite images in that movie, which if you get the, I guess it's the Criterion edition of the film in the widescreen where you can see his intent of everything you'd see in the image. When Richard Dreyfuss first gets the call that the power is out, and this is Stephen to his core to me. You have him in this just off the center of the frame with a phone, and he's like, what do you mean? Well, do they have it in whatever the next county is?
Yeah.
No, it's out there. Wait, it's going off right now. Oh, the lights are going, and the lights start going off above them.
Right.
And Terry Garr is in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And you see her just to the side, and she's washing dishes, which you hear. And in the left corner of the frame is this a little bit too old baby, maybe he's like 3, in a playpen. And the whole time the baby is smashing its baby doll's head against the edge of the playpen until the head flies off into the frame.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so beautiful about Stephen. And it's like, David, they don't waste 1 inch of their frame, and real life is happening everywhere.
Right.
In the most absurd circumstances.
Right.
And they do it in very different ways.
Right.
But there's also brilliantly adventurous thinking in the way they do it.
Construct. But it's micromanaging in a way, because
Absolutely.
It's not like when you watch the earlier Scorsese stuff, you're like, oh, it's just crazy out there.
Mean Streets, everything's all over, and
But
steady cam everywhere.
When you watch it, and Coppola's the same way, highly constructed frames.
Absolutely.
And like that's amazing to me because I watched one little segment of Lynch's what was the one with the long mile or the tractor
yes
was it
Straight Story. Yeah.
Just the one scene where he finally sits on the porch with Harry Dean, and Harry Dean says, "Did you drive that?" Like, I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. But the composition of every fucking frame is meticulous, and it's all so intentional.
And I don't know if this is true for David, but I'll say for myself,
Yeah.
we're also we got it in reruns, and maybe some of the filmmakers we're talking about got it originally, but we're all within a similar era that we grew up with television that inspired us immensely and isn't talked about enough. And for me, first of all, the Andy Griffith Show defines that Straight Story scene.
Yeah.
They would have 3-minute takes of Andy and Barney on the porch strumming music, and nothing would happen. And then he'd go, well, and Barney would go, well, nothing else would happen. And it's just so brilliant. It's so brilliant. Equally, All in the Family.
Yeah.
I mean, Lucy and the most, amazing Jean Stapleton performance of Edith are the women that raised me on the gray. I mean, they went for it so completely.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't define Edith as an idiot, and you wouldn't define Lucy as a rager or overtly jealous.
Yeah.
And yet they were.
Right.
And yet they were so complicated and beautiful, and you loved them and you wanted to protect them, and they were your heroes, but they were a mess too. And Archie was a disaster. I mean, we could never have that character on TV now.
No, not
as
in the
much
same
as
way.
we think we're being so bold.
Right.
And The Office and Modern Family have given us incredibly bold and brilliant characters.
Yeah.
Or Breaking Bad.
Right.
Archie Bunker broke every boundary. Maude broke every boundary. So we were so lucky to have 70s television doing it for us, and the reruns of I Love Lucy and Andy Griffith Show.
Forever they'll rerun.
Forever.
So what are you working on now?
I'm just figuring it out. I was working in New Orleans, which is such an awesome city.
Yeah.
On a movie, and hopefully going to do a movie in the fall that I love. I'm in a really interesting time of realizing that we're not going to do Enlightened anymore, and that's a bummer because I just love Amy. So it is sort of like saying goodbye to
You really can't
a dear
get that
friend.
thing done that last season. Come on.
I don't know. Some journalists have been writing in lately saying they're starting some kind of campaign on Kickstarter, and people are very vocal about it.
Why can't get Netflix to do it? Does HBO have ownership of it?
Yes.
Man, they won't let it go?
I don't...
You can get it back. I'll make a call.
Yeah, we need you to make a call. Are you kidding? That's exactly what we need.
I just don't understand, like, with all the money that's running around and all the availability to do something, on a reasonable budget, that it's just like, let's just get it done.
I know. The biggest bummer to me, I actually haven't talked to Mike and haven't talked to him about this, but in the last 3 weeks, the new fans in the last 3 weeks,
right,
who've had 2 seasons in their TiVo.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, when are you coming back?
Yeah.
We're not coming back. So, people are sort of just finding it now. And
the plan was just to do one more anyways? What the fuck? I mean, that's fucking ridiculous.
Well, I mean,
what are they spending their money on? One more season?
Right.
HBO can't kick in to do what? How many episodes?
And they might have.
10?
8. 6 even we could have done. I mean, we could do anything.
Oh, that's fucking ridiculous.
We can do anything.
I mean, with that talent, you and Mike, what the fuck?
But it's hard because you know where it could have gone, and Mike had brilliant ideas for the future, and I think we had a real interest in, now that we know this person and we know she can become a whistleblower, but once you are on the soapbox, oh my God, then what do you do with that?
Right.
That's very
for
interesting.
her. I would love to see that.
So, but in the meantime, I pray in the next year and 2, I'm working with friends who are great filmmakers and just getting to party like I've been lucky enough to do and have fun, while also having my 2 babies who, I love to be around, and figuring out how to do that on my own, which is cool, but interesting.
Oh, you're going to do it. You seem happy.
I'm totally happy. And I'd be thrilled if they just came with me all the time, which is what I did with my mom. But now, people think kids should be in school.
Yeah, what the hell is that about?
I don't know. In the 70s, I went to the most college preparatory school in LA. They were like, sure.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
See you in a few months.
And now kids also seem to have their own lives younger.
Oh, they have such huge lives.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even imagine it with connectivity and just,
they're on Instagram. They're texting each other. They're making their own plans.
Yeah, making their own movies.
Oh, yeah. They've all made their own movies.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And they're pros at everything.
Yeah.
And by the way, their heroes who are influencing them, especially the girls.
Yeah.
Jai's like, Mom, Katy Perry started writing at 13 and Taylor Swift started writing at 12. I've got to write songs this summer.
Wow.
She's 8.
Yeah.
I was like, you have time. But she's worried that she's not going to get her first record out by the time she's 13. As there's some busy ladies out there really making music early.
That's hilarious.
It's crazy.
Thanks for talking to me, Laura.
Thank you.
You feel good about it?
I feel great about it.
Okay, good. That's our show, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. She's great. I love her. It was an honor to talk to her. Just a wonderful human being, an incredibly talented person. It was great. And I hope you enjoyed that. Try to watch my special. There's no window to watch it. You can get it whenever you want. Thinky Pain premieres on Netflix, America, Canada, UK, Ireland tonight on the 21st in the non-English speaking countries, from what I understand. I will be at the Ice House with Dean Del Rey on October 13th. That's Sunday. I will be in touch with you on Thursday. More will be revealed, as they say. And, try to manage your content. If you can do anything today, get hold of your content. God, I'm still hammering that. It's ridiculous. Go to WTFpod.com, get some justcoffee.coop at WTFpod.com. Leave a nice message, buy some merch. We're going to make more cap bowls. We're going to make more ceramic mugs. We're going to make more T-shirts. Things are going to be changing a bit with WTF in coming months, just in terms of organizational things, in terms of managing content. Pow! Look out! Just shit it. Just shit the pants. JustCoffee.coop. Again, enjoy. I'm dealing. Content forthcoming. Boomer lives!